Hare Krishna. Okay. What time tonight? 6:45. It starts. And getting there 6:30. Just leave here 6:30. Okay. Okay. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Janvallabha Girivardhan Hridaya Jai Gopi Janvallabha Girivardhan Hridaya Surnandana Rajajavanjanaya Surnandana Rajajavanjanaya Jamuna Jamuna Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai 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 Prabhupada, Jai Govinda Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Harinam Sankirtan ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This is Canto 10, Chapter 39, Krura's Vision, and this is verses 17 through 21. Okay. Katim sulalitam chestam snigdaha savalokanam Sokapahani narmani Prodamar charitani cha Katim sulalitam chestam Snigdaha sarvalokanam Sokapahani narmani Pradamar charitani cha Katim sulalitam chestam Signaha sarvalokanam Sukapahani narmani Pradamar charitani cha. Ladies? Just push the slide down. Anyone else? Let's. Katim, the movements, Sulalitam, very charming, Chestam, the activities, Snigdha, affectionate, Hasa, smiling, Avalokanam, the glances, Shoka, unhappiness, Apahani, which remove, Narmani, the joking words, Pradama, mighty, Charitani, the deeds, Cha, and Chintayatya, thinking about Mukundasya of Lord Krishna, Vita, afraid, Viraha, because of separation, Kartara, greatly distressed, Sameta, joining together, Sangasa, in groups, Prochu, they spoke, Asru, with tears, Mukya, their faces, Achyuta Asaya, their minds absorbed in Lord Achyuta. Translation. The gopis were frightened at the prospect of even the briefest separation from Lord Mukunda. So now, as they remembered his graceful gait, his pastimes, his affection, his smiling glances, his heroic deeds and joking words, which would relieve their distress, they were beside themselves with anxiety at the thought of the great separation about to come. They gathered in groups and spoke to one another, their faces covered with tears and their minds fully absorbed in Achyuta. Verse number 19. The gopis said, O Providence, you have no mercy. You bring embodied creatures together in friendship and love, and then senselessly separate them before they can fulfill their desires. This whimsical play of yours is like a child's game. Having shown us Mukunda's face, framed by dark locks and beautified by his fine cheeks, raised nose and gentle smiles, which eradicate all misery, you are now making that face invisible. This behavior of yours is not at all good. O Province, though you come here with the name Akrura, you are indeed cruel. For like a fool you take away what you once gave us, those eyes which we have seen, even in one feature of Lord Madhudvish's form, the perfection of your entire creation. Srila Prabhupada's, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada's purport. The gopis did not care to see anything but Krishna. Therefore, if Krishna left Vrindavan, their eyes would have no function. Thus, Krishna's departure was blinding these poor girls, and in their distress they berated Akura, whose name means not cruel, as cruel indeed. Om Agyan Timidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Staptitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Pastyatya De Satarine Panchakopa Tarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Vacha Atitanam Bhavebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ila Prabhupada ki jai. So we're hearing about the gopis and their anticipation of Krishna's separation. The separation from Krishna and the anticipation from the separation of Krishna is the same for the gopis. You wouldn't think that the anticipation and the separation is the same, but they have experienced that separation before, and they understand the pain it gives them. The gopis have pure love for Krishna, and their love is absorbed in serving Krishna continuously. We might use the word 24/7 to give a clear understanding of their absorption in Krishna. When love reaches such a state of perfection, you can't do anything else but want to be with and serve the object of love. Love is the emotion that is the perfection of life. To exchange love, to give love, to receive love is the goal of life. And Krishna is the object of that love, because there's no perfect love anywhere to be found but within Krishna. What goes on in this material world as love, as Srila Prabhupada would explain, is not really love. It goes on the name of individual desires for personal gratification, using the other person as the object of getting that satisfaction. Well, that is not love. That is more like business, or to use the word, it's called kama, or lust. Love has no what we say expectations. Love is simply giving. When we expect something from what we give, then it becomes less than what it is. Of course, in the material world, that expectation is there, because otherwise people don't develop relationships, because there is some agreement or some expectation that is there in a preliminary sense, which allows that relationship to begin and then ultimately to develop. But with Krishna, it's not like that. Krishna leaves, and the gopis' love is never lost or even diminished even a bit. You see, in the material world also, people have a loving relationship with someone dear to them. If that person departs, for some time that love continues, and that anxiety of wanting that person to return becomes stronger and stronger. But then, if it goes on for an extended period of time, we see by experience And people lose that because they're thinking, well, I'm not gonna, that person's not coming back, or to take, and so they try to replace that feeling towards that object by replacing the object itself. In other words, another person. So in the material world, it's still, although the mood is similar, it is still tinged with personal desire. But the gopis, it looks like they're lamenting about their own fate. They're just thinking, oh, how will we live? But that's seen in a wrong way. They know that their love for Krishna is perfect, and they want to satisfy Krishna always. And they know that there's no one that can satisfy Krishna like they do. So they want to give Krishna the ultimate perfection of happiness at all times through the experience of their love for him. And Krishna, he's always there to receive that, but sometimes in order to increase that anxiety of wanting to love him, he departs. And this is the highest form of bhakti, a love in separation. Because, and of course, we hear that actually Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. He's always there. So he's there in the mood of vipralambha bhav, which is the mood of separation. He's always in the hearts of the residents of Vrindavan. They can never leave his association. And because Krishna is not relegated to a particular place. In other words, to be with Krishna, you don't have to be with him personally. You can be with him in the mood of loving him, and that is just as good as being with him, because Krishna is on the spiritual platform, not on the material platform, where everything, it has to be done according to proximity, place, where you can love Krishna, and even though he's not personally present, that love, or that relationship, or that association, that's a better word, that association is still as good as it is if you were personally present. So Krishna appears to be gone, but he's not. He stays within the heart of his devotees, who increase their intensity of their love for him. And you'll see, as this particular series of chapters goes on, how Krishna, he wants to satisfy the gopis' desire for him to be with them. So he sends a Krura, that'll come up in the later chapters, to Vrindavan, to somehow or other pacify the gopis by reminding them of Krishna's love for them. And he's doing a pretty good job for a while. But then the gopis, after a while, they don't want to hear it anymore. They want Krishna. He looks like Krishna too. And because he looks like Krishna, they're really happy to be with him and hear about Krishna. But at the same time, it's not the same. So you can't really intellectualize or understand this mood of love, because it's an experience. It's not something you can write down on a piece of paper and try to, understand it. So the gopis' loves are, and the example that's given, which is the epitome of all examples, is that one time Krishna had a headache, and so Narada Muni happened to be with Krishna at the time. So Narada had asked Krishna, "How are you?" Krishna said, "Well, I have a headache." "Oh, you have a headache? What can we do?" "Well, there's only one remedy for my headache, and that is the dust of the feet of my devotees. When I place that on my head, then my headache is gone." Narada said, "That's impossible. Who's going to give you their foot dust?" And Krishna said, "That's okay, go around and maybe you can find someone." And so he goes first to the sages of Namisharanya forest. And he meets them, He's on a mission to get the dust. And they greet Narada very nicely, worship him, glorify him. They're so happy to be with him. And then Narada, they ask, well, Narada, you've come for some reason. Yes, what is that? Well, Krishna has a headache. The sun is right in your eyes, huh? You can switch over a little bit, maybe. You look quite effulgent with the sun. Gives you more effulgence. Yeah, and the sun does that. The sun is very merciful. It shares its effulgence with others. And so they're asking, why have you come, Narada? And he said, well, Krishna's got a headache. Oh, phew. They become distressed. What can we do? Is there anything? He said, yes, that's why I've come. He says, the only thing that can cure his headache is the dust from your feet. And all of a sudden, everything changes. They don't want to hear that. Narada, what are you talking about? Where did you get this from? The dust of our feet on the head of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? That's so offensive, and we'll go to hell for that. So forget it. Don't even ask again. So Narada could understand that they weren't going to do anything. So he left, and he went to a few other devotees, and they all gave the same answer. And finally he came back to Krishna and said, mission unfulfilled. I failed. Krishna said, don't worry. Go to Vrindavan and ask the gopis. And so now he's excited to get the association of the gopis. So Narada leaves, and he gets there really quick. He can travel fast. He's a spaceman. So he gets to Vrindavan, and they welcome Narada. They know Narada, and they offer nice prayers to Narada, and ask Narada to bless them. And then they ask, well, why have you come? Well, Krishna has a headache. Oh my, the gopis almost died when they heard that. The pain of hearing that Krishna had a headache was just too much. That's how much their love for Krishna is. In fact, you hear sometimes when Krishna walks in the forest, he walks on these twigs and these little pebbles that are covering the areas of Vrindavan. And the gopis, when they think about that, they just become distressful. Krishna's soft lotus feet are being pricked and being scratched by these rocks and twigs. And it's too much for their mind to accept. They become really distressed. And so now they said, well, what can we do? Well, he wants the dust from your feet. So immediately they start taking their bangles off, and they're scraping the dust, and they're making piles. Narada, come on, take the dust. And Narada decides to test them just to see. He said, well, putting your dust on the foot, the head of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you can go to hell. They said, we don't mind. We'll go to hell forever if it relieves Krishna's headache. So don't even ask. Just take the dust. So Narada goes back, and then he explains to Krishna. Yeah, and then Krishna wanted to show Narada that this is real. This is bhakti in its best, that complete selflessness without any individual concern, only for the benefit of, and that is the highest form of bhakti. That is the ultimate principle of bhakti. Complete, unalloyed devotion. It's called ananya bhakti. That bhakti, which has not even a tinge or a slight even trace of anything selfish or personal. And now, but when people hear about the gopis, they hear about how they're acting, it looks like they're kind of acting like selfish. We want Krishna. Why can't he can't stay? Kruras come. He's a rascal. They call him all kinds of names. And they say he's not Krura, he's not Akrura, he's Krura, which means he's cruel. They started cursing him. In fact, later on, we found out that actually he did get cursed by the gopis. And because of that, he got involved with some bad association, and he committed a great offense. And because of that, he was even afraid of Krishna. And that's played out later with the story of the Samanchaka duel, which comes up in, I think, in about 10 more chapters. You'll find that's interesting. So the gopis cursed him because, you know why they cursed him? Not because he took Krishna out, but because he didn't say anything to them. He didn't say, my dear gopis, you know, I'm sorry I have to do this, but this is Krishna's desire, and this is, in other words, he didn't try to pacify them in any way. He simply acted as the charioteer and took Krishna away, and the gopis are really, really, really upset with him. But we get a little insight of what is real bhakti when we study the lives of the gopis. That's why Prabhupada said we should take time to read. We cannot imitate this level of bhakti because it's not possible to imitate it. It's something that comes by way of one's devotional progress. It's not something that comes by imitation. And there's a difference. When you move in a certain direction, you gain, you're gaining realization, you're gaining the element of devotion. So it'll come as that devotional energy increases. And then you can start to not only understand, but also experience a little bit of this selfless bhakti. But to imitate, there are people who like to imitate. Prabhupada said, there's one lady, she was telling me, or she actually wrote a book. She said, last night Krishna came and he was pulling on my sari. Prabhupada said, why would Krishna come and pull on her sari? She's like thinking that, that this is bhakti, but, she's imagining these things. So people pretentiously, surreptitiously, they get into these imaginations about their devotion to the Lord. But devotion to the Lord has substance. It's an experience. It's not simply an intellectual gymnastic that you apply. Therefore, we can study and hear about and appreciate the love that the gopis had, because then this is the highest form of bhakti. And of course, within the gopis, the highest form of bhakti is Radharani's love for Krishna. And that'll come up in one chapter called Brahmar Gita, which is the song of the bee, when Radharani meets Krishna in the form of a bee. And that's a nice exchange. That's coming up in the later chapters. But Akrura is doing his service. He's accepting the criticism that goes along with doing this service. Sometimes it's like that. You have to do your service. And for some reason, you're being criticized for doing whatever you're doing. You know it's right. It's being sanctioned like that. But at the same time, other people don't understand, find some fault, or criticize. And that happens because no matter what you do in this world, you'll find people always find fault with that. There's somebody who will find fault with anything you do, no matter what it is. And that's the nature of Kali Yuga. It's just, Kalaya Dosha Nidhi. It's just an ocean of faults. And one of the biggest faults is criticism. Everybody Prabhupada was saying, I was just listening yesterday, Prabhupada said, criticism goes on all the time in Kali Yuga. Everyone is criticizing everybody. People criticize, they even criticize themselves too. Well, that's good, because that helps you to become a little bit more, aware of your own deficiencies, but criticism is going on, so. This is the nature of Kali Yuga. So, but when we have to do our duty, or when we have to engage in devotional service, and we're following the instructions of the spiritual master, then it doesn't matter, what people say, because we know that everything we do is ordained by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as long as we are doing it in the proper way. Proper way means proper mood, and according to the activities that it meant to be performed in that way. Everything should be done in the right way and in the right mood. The right mood, in the mood of service, and in the right way according to how that activity is meant to be performed. Just like you have a construction business, but you might have a nice mood about, well, I'm going to build this nice building, but some of your workers don't know how to do it, so it doesn't work so good. They make mistakes, and then you have to start all over again, and then it wastes time, it wastes energy, it wastes money. So everything's have to be done in the right way, in the right mood. But of course, of the two, the mood and the proper way, the mood is more important. The mood is more important because this is a process of bhakti. Bhakti means to offer devotion to Krishna or to the Krishna's devotees by serving in such a way that you want to please those persons that you serve, or to make a difference in their Krishna consciousness in a very positive way. So that's important. And if we're always conscious of what we're doing, sometimes because of the mode of passion forces us to think and act without even clearly seeing the situation. Sometimes you do something and then after a while you realize it's not right, or you said something you shouldn't have said, or you didn't say something you should have said. It's like that. So if we remember Krishna, and this is the whole thing, by remembering Krishna, everything is perfect. Everything is perfect. So that's another process, to remember Krishna. But to remember Krishna always, and of course that's the recommendation from the acharyas, satatam kirtayanto mam, to always glorify, to remember Krishna always. And that is the perfection of devotion. And that takes practice, and it also takes determination. So we need to practice that mood of always remember. The gopis, they can't forget Krishna. If you tell the gopis to forget Krishna, they'll think you're, to use the word, crazy. It's not possible. Even Prabhupada, he talked about himself. He said, someone asked Prabhupada, are you always remembering Krishna? Prabhupada said, there's never a time I was not remembering Krishna. So for a great soul such as Srila Prabhupada, to remember Krishna is natural. It's ordinary. And it's just the way life goes. For us, we have to make an effort to remember Krishna. And that's why we have association with devotees, we have the deities, we have our holy name, the prasadam, we have worship. All of these things that we perform is meant to build this consciousness of Krishna. Always, constantly, so that we can, when we're outside of the activities, say we're outside doing something else, we're still able to remember Krishna by the strength of our own performance of these activities. And so when we absorb ourselves in the day-to-day activities of devotion, that makes an impression on the consciousness, and that carries with you. The more you absorb yourself, the more that impression, the stronger that impression becomes, like that. And it becomes more natural to remember Krishna. Okay, so these are some things. This particular section is interesting because you'll see as, finally, Krura gets away. the gopis do everything they can to stop the chariot. They even lay in front of the chariot, thinking it doesn't matter if the chariot rolls over us, we'll still at least we'll be able to stop Krishna from going. Krishna is not willing to be stopped because he has a mission. And this is interesting because Krishna's mission is to give pleasure to his devotees, that's why he comes, but also to kill the demons and reestablish religion. So sometimes, not sometimes, but a lot of times in each of his leelas, he puts aside his devotees for the mission. He did that with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he took sannyas. He left his devotees in order to, to preach Krishna consciousness from the sannyas ashram. Shri Krishna also here, he has to kill so many demons. That's why he's leaving the Vrindavan. So he needs to fulfill that mission of getting rid of them. And no one else could do it because these demons were really heavy demons, not small demons. Demons we have now, they're just like, insects compared to the demons. These are really powerful demons. And they cause much problems. And then, of course, even in Lord Ramachandra, he had to, leave Ayodhya, his home, and, be separated from his devotees in order to, take care of Ravana. So, you see how the Lord's mission, he has to execute that, and the devotees are always feeling separation or anxiety because of the Lord's executing his mission. I can't see the clock. I don't know what time it is. 8:21? Okay, so we can open it up if you have any questions or comments. Yes, Leela Manjari.
Mahraj, welcome back to Chicago. We are very, very fortunate to have your association.
It's nice to be here. I was feeling yesterday, I was thinking, boy, I feel kind of natural being here. Like, I was thinking when I come back here, what am I going to do? But it seems quite natural to be here for some reason. Maybe you can find the explanation. But
yeah, this was your home for several years.
Yeah, 1995 to 2012 or 13, I'm not sure. One of those years. Yeah, they used to call me the non-resident resident. The resident that's never here. Yeah, what to do? Question?
Yes, my question was that throughout scriptures we often find a lot of emphasis on committing Vaishnava aparat and how it affects our spiritual life. So as you were explaining the curse of the gopis to Akrura, I was thinking about how Rupa Goswami was once in meditation and his meditation broke because in his meditation he smiled, and Ashtavakra, he took offense thinking that he was smiling at him passing by and walking. Mm-hmm. And I was also thinking about like Akrura, he was a devotee of the Lord, but he was bound by duty and he wanted Krishna to come to Mathura. But in both ways, like it seems that their devotion was affected because of what they did, and it was unintentional in the first case. I'm thinking about myself, and sometimes I have spoken honestly about certain things.
You have to what?
I have spoken
Okay.
honestly about some perspective or some devotee, and they have taken offense to it. So, I'm trying to understand, where do we draw the line about being honest and, receiving a reaction for it?
Well, speaking honestly is not necessarily simply telling things the way they are. It's also how you present that knowledge. Satyam priyam, satyam bruyam, to speak the truth in a palatable way. And there's many examples of Prabhupada, especially the story of Vallabhacharya, which is a very long story. But yeah, I think you have to be sensitive to the possibility that what you say may not be, at least be aware, that it may not be accepted, and you'll be seen as something else. It depends on your relationship with the person also. In some cases, like the spiritual master must do that to the disciples, the teachers must do that to the students, the parents must do that for their children, because they have that role to play, and that's their responsibility. Unless you have that role, then if you want to walk into a role, then it becomes a whole different thing. Are you the one to speak it? And then you have to see. You have to kind of perceive a little bit about what may happen by what you say for him beforehand, before you even say something. The reactions are not within our control. Yeah. The reactions come from, higher powers. So we have to be a little sensitive and see, be a little foresight to see whether this is necessary or not necessary at the particular time. It's a very complex situation but I think a little bit of foresight in the matter of what will be the outcome, you can try to perceive that before you enter into the activity. Yeah, because a lot of times people don't understand, or if they misunderstand, they take that misunderstanding as an offense. I think did I talk about that the other day, about misunderstanding? About the two boys that went with Prabhupada? Yeah. Both of them were right, but because there was a misunderstanding, lack of communication, it appeared there was some discrepancy in the whole activity. Individual relationships are very hard to play out. But the most important thing is you have to see, if you're going to instruct someone, what is your role? If you have that role, then that's one thing. If you don't have that role, then you have to be seeing what is the motivation behind your instructing that person. Why am I doing it? Because they're disturbing me? Well, that's another thing. Because if they're disturbing the mood, then that's even more important than if it's disturbing me. In other words, just like if somebody's causing some disturbance in the temple, someone should say something because it causes problems with everybody, not just the persons who feel disturbed, but other people also. So you have to see what is your role in that in the instructions. And if you feel all right, then you feel like you should go ahead, then you have to be very sensitive on how you present it. Better to speak in a positive way than speak in a negative way. Rather than telling people what they doing wrong, explain to them what they should be doing right. That's another way of saying the same thing. By emphasizing what is correct rather than emphasizing what is incorrect. When you emphasize what is correct, then the message is whatever I'm doing is incorrect, and they become aware of that by themselves. Sometimes you use an example to help bring out what you're trying to say. So these are just ways to approach the situation. But if you see that by your saying it's going to disturb the whole situation, better to not do it, or to have someone else do it who you think would be more, successful. Instructing others is it's a very complex and very sensitive thing. Especially when you instruct children, that's one thing, but when you're instructing adults, that's a whole different thing.
Thank you, Maharaj. It was very, very helpful.
Does that help? Yeah. I just thought of an incident where Prabhupada was talking about, he said, we are known as shaven-headed, we're not known as long-hair-headed. And so now we're seeing that because we are very lenient, this is a class he's giving, we are living lenient, all of these things are coming back now, all these wrong things. And he said, but I'm an old man, and you are a young man, and I cannot instruct you. But please, try to remain, try to, follow by remaining, once a month shave up. He said once a fortnight. He said like that. So Prabhupada very sensitively explained how the devotees were not, shaving up when they should have been. But he did it in a very sweet way. You can listen to the tape. It's in Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 6th chapter, verse number 3. It's the Srimad Bhagavatam class, 1976. 5th canto, 6th chapter, verse 33. Prabhupada starts talking about that. So he does it in a very nice way, that you can't find fault with the way he's saying it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Prabhupada would get angry, and he said, I'm getting old. When you get old, you get less tolerant. So, he was giving excuses for himself getting angry. When you get old, you get less tolerant. It makes the devotees feel a little bit better. But then other times he would just just put somebody on the floor and they couldn't move. It's like one devotee asked Prabhupada, he was a preacher, and probably said, the Christians say that, let's see, how do you say that God is in the heart? So the Christians say, how do we understand that? How do we know? So Prabhupada said, you're out there preaching and you don't know the answer to that? Don't you read my books? And he was just kept going and going. The poor devotee was like sinking into the floor. And Prabhupada was just firing on him. And the other devotees who were there, they were feeling sorry for this devotee. So they kept trying to interrupt Prabhupada just to take the pressure off this other devotee. And Prabhupada just ignored them and just kept going. For 20 minutes, I was just talking to Prahlad Maharaj because he was there during this situation. He was there when this was happening. He was telling me all the details. And that devotee just went, oh. And Prabhupada just kept firing on him. You don't read my books. You're out there preaching. How are you going to be able to preach if you don't know the answer? So sometimes Prabhupada would make you feel so little, but the next minute, there was no anger with Prabhupada. He was just like back to normal, because he could turn it on and turn it off. So if you get upset when you're chastising or constructing someone, that's then you have to be able to control that. We should not be controlled by our emotions, but we should be able to control our emotions. That's the point. Emotions are strong, and sometimes people get carried away by the emotional moment and do and say things that they later regret tremendously. Okay, any other comments, questions? Yes, Jai Baladev.
No, I was just passing around first.
Ruchi.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the nice class. So there's a quote that I heard that society creates criminals and the criminals just commit the act. So if a demon loves Krishna or is trying to love Krishna,
A demon?
Is Krishna going to reciprocate accordingly, seeing the past of the demon, what he has gone through?
Krishna, if a demon is trying to change and actually become a devotee by loving Krishna, Krishna will accept that. He will not see your past. He will simply accept whatever you're offering. Krishna is like that. He's very forgiving by nature. But, how Krishna deals with people is that he deals with them as they approach him. So someone, even if it's a demon approaching him in a loving mood, he's going to reciprocate in that same loving mood. But if it's a devotee approaching him in a wrong mood, he'll reciprocate in that mood also. That's Krishna. Okay. All right. So, anything else? Oh, there's another question over there. We have Chaitendra Prabhu.
I was just reading in Srila Prabhupada's book, Journey to Self-Discovery. And Prabhupada, stresses, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And which is, I think that's part of it was at the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita?
1866, yeah.
Yeah. So, but going up to that, he was saying, give up all this nonsense, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, like whatever you're following, and then, but I don't think people were quite ready because they're in their traditions and they can't really just change like that, because they have to evaluate the whole spectrum.
But they don't understand what Prabhupada's saying.
Right.
Yeah. He's not saying giving up your devotional path. He's give up the idea that you are designated in that way. you're not a Christian, you're not a Jew, you're following a particular path that's given us a particular name, that's all.
Yeah.
Well, we are Jiver Sarupai Krishnera Nityadas. That's our identity. That's everyone's identity. And so when we identify ourselves with the way we practice as opposed to our actual real identity, our internal identity,
Yeah.
then that's off. Like if a person thinks, well, I'm a temple president. Well, you're playing the role of a temple president. It doesn't mean you're a temple president. You play the role. You're a temple president in that role, but who are you? You are, Krishna's part and parcel. I'm a guru. Prabhupada said, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, anyone who thinks he's a guru is a golu, cow, an animal. So he used these, if we identify with the roles we play, as opposed to identifying with who we really are, then that's the dichotomy. Yeah.
Another thing, when Prabhupada was in the Evanston temple, he said that women are less intelligent than men, and that kind of really was a startling statement for the certain women to comprehend that.
No, women are more intelligent than men because they can control men. That's obvious, so that's the end of that. Yeah.
I just remember
that's logical, right?
Yeah. That was a pretty controversial thing at the time.
Well, they don't understand the statement in context, that's all. Jai Baladev, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you for your class. Just a small comment. I appreciate when any sannyasi comes, because all the devotees are definitely well more behaved, including myself. And I think Leela Manjari has nothing to worry about. Usually when the sannyasis leave, I'm screaming at all the devotees, so compared to me, I think I commit the most aparats. But my question is regarding your point of proximity. Proximity, you mentioned this word proximity.
Yeah, within the range of association, yeah.
And immediately this brought to mind that Prabhupada always makes a distinction between proximity and principles, or the vapu versus the vani of the spiritual master. And the vani, the principles, the instructions are more important. And so there's one of my favorite pastimes in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. This is from Lilamrita chapter 34. The chapter is called Jet Age Paribraja Kacharya.
Yeah.
And so in that chapter, there was a temple president named Hari Vilas Prabhu. And for whatever reason, him and another devotee, a teenager, I believe, his name was Ganesham, they came in late to a Prabhupada lecture. So they both came, the temple president and Ganesham, who was translating some of Prabhupada's books, came in late. And so Hari Bhakti Vilas, he's explaining that when I came in late to the lecture of Prabhupada, Ganesham, he sat all the way in the back. But Hari Vilas Prabhu, he says, I walked all the way to the front and sat right next to Prabhupada. And he says, at that moment, Prabhupada gave me my first instruction. And Prabhupada's first instruction was to him, is that he said Prabhupada didn't even acknowledge me. Prabhupada didn't acknowledge me. He ignored me. And so this is one thing I appreciate, because Prabhupada says in the 7th canto of chapter 5, verse 12, he says that one should not be proud of one's own service. One should appreciate the service of others. So my question is that what are some steps we could do to, or at least this is a lesson I appreciate from Prabhupada, that the tendency, you says, in the material world, everyone has their motive. So when we appreciate something, it's either you did a good job, but it's followed by a but, or you did a good job because I need something for you. So how important is it to offer, every day is an opportunity to offer appreciation devotees, without expecting anything in return. So how important is it to offer that appreciation without expecting anything, without any correction?
Well, it should be done genuinely, not pretentiously. Well, if we don't appreciate the other devotees, then how can you actually, associate with them? You appreciate because they're a devotee, that's the main thing. And the second thing is that they're exhibiting certain qualities in their devotional service, or they're also doing certain activities that we find are very beneficial. We can appreciate that because it also helps us. It's not like it's distinct from our benefit. We get benefit by another person's service, So we can appreciate that. And some of our yatras, when we have these big programs, one of the parts of the yatra towards the end is to spend about a half hour to an hour just naming the devotees who work so hard to put on the yatra. To, the cooks, the organizers, the kirtaniers, whoever, just to appreciate what services they've done. And this is good for the devotees. It makes them feel inspired to do more. Yeah. But then again, the wrong way to do it is just to go around just being what they call a professional appreciator. I appreciate you because I want to be known as a person who appreciates. That's another one. A professional appreciator says all good things, but it's just a program. It's not really coming from the heart. But if you reflect and you genuinely can see what is happening amongst the devotees and amongst the activities, appreciation will automatically be there. If you're not appreciating, it means you're insensitive to what's happening around you. Oblivious, more like. Yeah. Yes, okay. So Mataji, yes, you have a question? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj. So, I read somewhere that whatever devotional service we perform it's because of some other devotees. Whatever devotional service we perform, because it's because of other devotees' blessings also. So it's nice you are here, Maharaj. I hope you be more here. So the program becomes more enlivened. Thank you. You explained very nicely about the gopis in different ways. The path of gopis is path of perfection. We cannot imitate that. So there's somewhere it's mentioned like householders 40%, brahmachari 70%, back home, back to Godhead. The chances of going back home to Godhead. So,
you're you're giving it a percentage.
No, Prabhupada says it, not me. I'm repeating. And also said that brahmachari, he can go home back to Godhead. That's also said. If you remain a brahmachari.
If he's a strict brahmachari his whole life.
Varasodesham tu antagatam papam.
Yeah, there's mercy there. You want a quick way to go back to Godhead? I can tell you. Preach. Preach Krishna consciousness, and then that will, as soon as you preach, you're recognized by Krishna automatically. And preaching, people don't really want to hear it, but still you got to do it. Yeah, Prabhupada said, anyone who preaches, she's immediately recognized by the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada said, if you get recognized by the Lord, then your devotional service is guaranteed. Yeah, but if you're doing any other service, of course, you can always preach in whatever service you're doing. It's not like there is a distinct service called preachers, but everyone can have the mood of preaching. and find opportunities to spread Krishna consciousness no matter what your service is. But it's something you have to desire. If you don't desire it, it won't happen. I desire, please use me, Krishna, to be an instrument to help others to become Krishna conscious, and Krishna will give you the opportunity if you pray like that and sincerely. It's not about, sitting in a particular place and giving a lecture. It's about the mood of wanting to bring others closer to Krishna, that's all. Okay, Mataji, you have question also? Yeah, okay, Hare Krishna.
Sorry if I'm extending the time too much, but there's this understanding that Akrura had actually offended the gopis by virtue of the fact that he hadn't, in some sense, spoken with them about the action he was about to perform. But on the other hand, it doesn't seem that it's completely his responsibility to do so.
Tell that to the gopis.
Because he's coming into a setting that he's not familiar with.
No, it's not, the gopis didn't say that. It's actually, I think it's either Jiva Goswami or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, Akrura was implicated later on in wrong activities because he was cursed by the gopis. And what he says is that not because he took Krishna out, he did that, but because he didn't say anything to them, he just ignored them. He was insensitive to the fact that they were, overwhelmed with, separation. He didn't say anything. So it appears that he got an offense by omission. You can get offenses by doing the wrong things, and you can get an offense by not doing the thing you're supposed to do in a certain situation. That's another kind of reaction. And what happened later on, I can tell you what happened, yeah. It's, I can actually, there is a particular purport. It says that, him and Kritavarma got together and they encouraged Satyadanya to kill Satyajit to steal the Shamataka jewel. So he acted in that way. But Krishna forgave him after a while. Him and Kritavarma. Now Kritavarma and Akrura are both pure devotees. And Kritavarma, he acted wrongly because he took the wrong association. And I wish I had that. The book is not here. It's in the later chapters. I think it's in chapter 53 or something like that. Describes why he acted the way he did is because he got cursed by the gopis. I mean, I'm not going to, that's the acharyas give us the understanding. So, yeah. He just, he was just insensitive to the fact that the gopis were overwhelmed with anguish, He's still a pure devotee, though. Even pure devotees make mistakes. Sometimes. Okay, so we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.